We've seen a lot of Grogu figures in the Black Series, but this one has something we've never seen on him quite like this before.
That's right. This is the brand new Grogu from the Mandalorian Grogu movie, and he's showing up in Mandalorian armor.
And today, we're taking our first look at what's new with this little guy.
Let's start with articulation, because there's actually something really interesting about this Grogu. And for a figure this tiny, articulation can be pretty important because even a little bit of movement can completely change his personality. Starting at the head. Grogu has good head movement. It's pretty typical for Grogu though. We're really just getting that side-to-side movement. But honestly, that's enough. Even without a lot of head articulation, you can tilt him from side to side and immediately give him a completely different expression. It's one of those cases where you don't necessarily need a huge range of motion to get personality out of a character. Now here's where I think we might have a pretty big upgrade. Look at his arms. It looks like Hasbro has updated the arms with these teeny tiny, I think they're hinge joints? I think so, but 777th Battalion, correct us if we're wrong on that one. But whatever the exact engineering is, that is a huge upgrade for this Grogu. Being able to move his arms more independently gives you so many more options for posing him. And because he's such a small character, those little movements make a surprisingly big difference. You can give him a more relaxed pose, a curious pose, or something that feels a little more action-oriented. And he's got wrist movement as well. We've got the standard vertical hinge. And horizontal hinge movement. Again, that's a really nice addition on such a small figure. And of course, there isn't any foot or ankle movement on Grogu. But honestly, I'm okay with that. His feet are sturdy, and that's important because you want this little guy to actually stand. Especially with those tiny proportions, having a solid stance is more important to me than adding articulation just for the sake of adding articulation.
So, after getting him in our hands and actually moving him around, my first impression is that this feels like a really interesting new version of Grogu.
And I think the Mandalorian armor is a big part of that. It's immediately what catches your eye.
Absolutely. We've seen Grogu in his robes so many times, so seeing him with that Mandalorian armor across the front of his chest immediately makes this release feel different.
And then you add those upgraded arms and the wrist articulation, and suddenly you've got a Grogu that can take on a lot more personality through posing.
And that's really what we want to explore with this collection overview. We're not here to tell you whether you should buy him or skip him. We're looking at what's new, what makes this version different, and how he fits into the Black Series collection.
And now that we've seen how he moves, let's take a really close look at that little face and see how Hasbro captured Grogu for the movie.
Let's take a closer look at that little face, because there are some noticeable differences with this Grogu.
The first thing I noticed was the ears. They look bigger on this version.
And they're made from a soft plastic, which makes sense for those big ears and also helps prevent them from being too rigid.
But what's really interesting is the paintwork. There's more paint applied around the eyes.
Yeah, when you get him under the lights, you can really see those additional paint applications. It gives his face a little more definition.
And then look at the top of his head.
You can actually see those little hair markings.
Yeah. And there's a light wash over them that helps bring those little details out.
They're tiny details, but that's exactly the kind of thing that makes a difference when you get a figure under a camera.
especially when you're looking at a character this small. Those little paint applications really help bring his face to life.
Now let's talk about the biggest visual change on this Grogu, the Mandalorian armor.
Front and center, you've got this round Beskar Mandalorian chest plate.
And this is not removable, it's sculpted as part of the figure.
Which I think makes sense for this particular version because it's part of his movie design.
And I really like how much that armor changes the overall look of Grogu. You immediately know you're looking at the movie's version.
There's also some really interesting stuff happening on the back.
I believe this is a silver telescope.
And it looks like it's secured to the strap of his chest plate, sliding into its holder.
777th Battalion, if you know exactly what this piece is or if we're missing something about it, let us know down in the comments.
There's another little detail down here on his right side, a brown pouch hanging from the chest armor strap.
Again, it's a small detail, but it adds another layer to the movie's specific design.
One thing I noticed about the rest of the figure is how clean the body is.
There's no dirt wash across the robe or the body. It's a very clean presentation.
And I actually think that works for this version. The armor becomes the visual focal point instead of having weathering compete with it.
Exactly. You've got the armor, the straps, the pouch, the telescope, and then that clean robe underneath. Now, let's get into the accessories because Hasbro went in a really fun direction with this Grogu.
First up, we've got his walking stick.
It's a simple accessory, but it makes sense for the character and gives you another option for displaying him.
Then we've got this little canister of cookies.
And look at that. A blue cookie is actually visible right on top.
That's such a fun little movie-specific detail.
And it gives us another really recognizable Grogu moment that we can recreate with the figure.
And finally, we have a dead fish.
Of course we do.
And honestly, if you've seen the Mandalorian and Grogu movie material, you know exactly why this belongs here.
All three accessories feel connected to this particular version of Grogu and the movie, rather than just being generic pieces thrown into the box. So, between the walking stick, the cookie canister, and the fish, you've got three accessories that really help tell the story of this particular Grogu.
And that's one of my favorite things about this release. Even though we've had plenty of Grogu figures, Hasbro found ways to make this one feel connected specifically to the new movie.
The Mandalorian armor, the new articulation, and these movie-specific accessories really give collectors a different version to put on the shelf.
And of course, we had to give Grogu the fish.
I mean, how could we not? And then we've got Grogu with his cookies.
This might actually be my favorite display option because it feels so much like Grogu.
Now we want to hear from the 777th Battalion. What do you think about this new Grogu wearing Mandalorian armor?
And with all the different versions of Grogu we've gotten in the Black Series, which Grogu is your favorite so far?
And if you're ready to see what else is coming in Wave 2, we've got the entire Mandalorian and Grogu movie collection lined up for you.
The playlist is called Star Wars Black Series, the Mandalorian and Grogu Movie Collection. So if you want to see the entire wave, that's the place to go.
And speaking of the rest of the wave,
we're going from one of the smallest characters in the wave
to one of the biggest.
Next up, we're taking a closer look at Zeb Orrelios and seeing what's new with this long-awaited Black Series release.
If you're a Star Wars Rebels fan, you're definitely going to want to see this one.
We'll see you in the next one. I'm Jedi Jill.
I'm Jedi Joy.
May the Force be with you.